In a world where beauty hides deadly secrets, Snow White isn't just running from an evil queen. She's running from something much darker. A cursed mirror, poisoned dreams, and a kingdom on the brink of destruction. What if everything you thought was a fairy tale was a lie? In the shadows of this magical realm, betrayal waits, and no one is safe. As Snow White battles for her life, she discovers that the real enemy isn't just the queen. It's something much closer and far more terrifying. The movie begins in a peaceful kingdom, ruled by a virtuous king and queen, whom had always longed for a child. One faithful night, a snowy storm razed the land, and it was at this moment a princess was born to them. So they named her Snow White. The virtuous king and queen taught Snow White how to rule with love, insisting that someday her destiny would be to rule the kingdom. Snow White was well loved and cherished by all the inhabitants of the kingdom, due to her caring nature. In this kingdom, both rulers and commoners lived in harmony together as one. Periodically, the good queen fell ill and died, so the king married another woman from a faraway land. And it was from this moment onwards, tragedy befell the land. The new queen's beauty was so magnanimous that it seemed to grant her mystical powers beyond the ordinary. Soon, the new queen misled the king about an incoming attack on his land, which made him leave his kingdom and bid to defend his people. Darkness clouded the land as the king never returned, and the queen's power grew beyond measures. Farmers were turned to soldiers loyal only to her, and using them, she robbed the kingdom of its riches. The evil queen made Snow White into a servant and locked her away beyond the castle walls. But as long as the magic mirror confirmed she's the fairest of them all, Snow White was safe from the evil queen's cruel envy. The kingdom was no longer cheerful as it used to be. Rather, they lived in impoverishment due to overtaxing by the evil queen. While diligently working, Snow White met with a handsome bandit named Jonathan, who was in the process of stealing from the castle pantry, just so his friends can survive. So she kindly allowed him to leave with the stolen items. After this event, Snow White boldly confronted the queen of the people suffering, pleading she treats her subjects with kindness, and also shares a little of the kingdom's riches with them. The evil queen proved to be apathetic to the sufferings of her subjects, and in the course of their conversation, a huntsman brought Jonathan to the queen, revealing his crimes as a pilfer. On seeing this, the evil queen ordered for him to be thrown into the dungeon, but Snow White pushed against it, insisting it's too much of a punishment. And it was at this moment Jonathan unearthed she is the forgotten princess. The queen became even more aggravated, so she gave Jonathan an even greater punishment. Snow White watched how he was being dragged out, so she defied the queen's orders and released him. The evil queen was immensely angry on seeing this, so she proceeded to ask the magic mirror who's the fairest of them all. But unlike what she was expecting, the mirror revealed it is now Snow White who holds the title. Instantaneously, the queen ordered her huntsman to take the princess to a secluded place in the forest, and there execute her, usurp her heart, and place it in the jeweled box she gave him, promising to grant him all his heart desires on his return. Snow White was happy she got to see the outside world after years of being held hostage in the castle. She was very kind to the huntsman, so due to this singular act, he didn't have the heart to proceed with the execution. The huntsman then urged Snow White to flee into the woods, warning her of her evil stepmother's ill intentions. Snow White was immensely frightened on hearing this, so she ran into the deep dark forest, which happened to be alive. Before you knew it, she fell inside a river and soon found herself in an unknown place. Snow White wasn't alone, as she made friends with all the animals present there, and they seemed to recognize her kind-hearted nature. On spur of moment, the animals led her to a sequestered cottage situated in the forest deep. They welcomed her inside, but at the time, the owners of the home were not around, so she ended up falling asleep in their bed. Unbeknownst to her, the cottage is owned by 7 dwarfs, namely Grumpy, Dopey, Happy, Doc, Bashful, Sneezy, and Sleepy. They all spend their days working in a diamond mine, situated few miles from their home. With togetherness, they all mined the diamonds diligently, until the bell rang, signifying it's time for them to return home. They were so tired on returning home, so they all headed upstairs to sleep. But then they were all terrified on discovering an unknown entity is laying on their bed. Not long after, Snow White woke up from her slumber, also immensely frightened. The dwarfs charged to attack her almost immediately, but they halted on noticing she's a human. They took pity on her when she told them of her plight. So knowing she's the princess, they insisted she stays with they till she figures out what to do next. Meanwhile, whilst asking the mirror who's the fairest of them all, the evil queen unearthed Snow White is still alive. On getting the hang of this, she checked the box only to discover an apple there, instead of Snow's heart. The queen's guards brought the huntsman before her, to face judgment. After punishing the huntsman for his deception, she ordered her personal guards to search the entirety of the forest for Snow, with instructions not to come back till they find her. On the other hand, Grumpy suggested Snow White has overstayed her welcome, and it's time for her to leave, causing the entire crew to fight amongst themselves. Not long after, they stopped the fight to jointly make fun of Dopey, and this made him very sad. Snow White saw all this unfold, so she met with him outside to try cheer him up. After cheering him up, she taught him how to whistle. The other dwarfs were immensely astounded on hearing Dopey whistle, as he has never made any sound all his life. Seeing how much they were agitated to learn how to whistle, she taught it to all of them joyously. Before you knew it, they became utterly fond of each other, and lived together in harmony. Snow White told them of the time when her father the king was still around, and this got her thinking he's still alive, so she insisted it's her duty to find him. Snow White reckoned the bandits in the forest would know his whereabouts, so she urged the dwarfs to point her in the right direction, of which they obliged. Snow White, now all by herself yet again, scoured through the forest in search of the bandits. All of a sudden, Jonathan pulled her down into hiding, as the queen's guards were out looking for her. Moving on, she beckoned on Joe to help in the search of her father, as she knew he had unwavering loyalty to the one true king. Jonathan revealed he didn't know a thing about the king's whereabouts, insisting those are princess problems, whilst he's just a bandit trying to provide food for his people. On short notice, the princess was surrounded by Nathan's cohorts, but he ordered them to stand down, insisting she's with him. Not long after, they were besieged by the queen's guards, so they all went into hiding. Jonathan stylishly told the princess to run away, then him and his cohorts engaged the palace guards in a brutal battle. The princess chose not to run away, rather, she garnered her animal friends, and just when the guards cornered the bandits, Snow White showed herself, diverting the guards' attention. The animals staged a distraction for the guards, while Snow rode gallantly to meet up with the bandits, and that was how they managed to escape. One of the soldiers sighted them. Then he shot at the princess, but Jonathan took the arrow in her stead. Snow White instantly took him to the dwarfs for treatment, and with the use of dwarf magic, they were able to restore Jonathan back to good health. Snow White thanked Doc for his help, then everyone danced together in happiness. Epic indeed. In this moment of truth, Snow White and Jonathan fell in love with each other. On spur of moment, they heard the glaring horn of the queen's guards, so Jonathan promised her he'll be back in 2 days to help her find her father. Then he left with his cohorts, to derail the guards from finding the cottage. As Jonathan was going, he mistakenly stepped on a snare trap and it engulfed him. Instantaneously, the guards brought him before the evil queen. The queen noticed he was wearing Snow's necklace, so she stripped off him, knowing fully well it'll lead her to where Snow White is. The evil queen then headed into her secret chambers, and in there, she prepared an evil potion. After drinking it, she slowly transformed into an evil elderly crone. Periodically, she created a poisoned apple, hoping to curse Snow White with a sleeping death, with the antidote being a true love's kiss. The evil queen felt Snow White won't be able to escape this curse, as she held her true love in custody. Then she set out on her evil expedition. In the forest, they all felt the presence of an incoming evil being, but the dwarfs shrugged it off and headed out to work, leaving Snow White in her lonesome. A fearsome vulture accompanied by the evil queen were able to find the dwarf's cottage on short notice. The elderly crone claimed she was here to help Snow White, showing her the necklace she gave Jonathan, in conviction that he had been captured by the evil queen. All the animals ran off into the forest on sensing the queen's evil powers, to call on the dwarfs to help Snow, who they felt was in imminent danger. Snow White was about to head out to rescue Jonathan, but then the elderly crone offered her an apple, one that would assist her on her journey. The old woman finally succeeded in her trick to make her eat the apple, and after she did, the elderly crone revealed her true nature as the evil queen, admitted her father is dead and she was the cause of it. Then she decamped back to the castle. The dwarfs arrived at the cottage not long after, but it was already too late, as Snow White had fallen into an inexorable deep sleep. Back in the castle, the magic mirror confirmed to the evil queen, she's now the fairest of them all. With the combined strength of Jonathan and the huntsman, they were both able to break out of captivity, Then Jonathan rode gallantly into the forest. The animals there led him to where Snow White was laid, and he was bemoaned to see her in such a helpless state. Out of instincts and pure love for her, he kissed Snow White deeply. On spur of moment, she woke up from her enchanted sleep, and her awakening brought joy to everyone around. Snow White figured it's high time she recovers her kingdom from the hands of the tyrannical evil queen. She urged the civilians to join her in the fight against the evil queen, restoring their long-lost hope once again. It was a face-off between the civilians led by Snow White and the palace guards faithful to the queen. The evil queen tried to coerce Snow White into killing her, but Snow was smart enough not to fall for her tricks the second time. The queen then ordered one of the palace guards to silence Snow White for good, but before he could, she reminded him of how peaceful the land was before the evil queen's arrival, after which all the guards laid down their weapons, refusing to stand by the evil queen's side any longer. Out of frustration, she inquired from the mirror who's the fairest of them all, and on hearing it's Snow White, she angrily shattered the magic mirror. Due to this occurrence, the evil queen disappeared into a vortex, given the fact that all her evil powers stems from the magic mirror. The entirety of the kingdom hosted a celebration to commemorate Snow White's institution as the new queen, after which she soon got married to Jonathan, and they lived happily ever after. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.